What's happening, Wargamers? Welcome to another Aegis Brand Studios video looking at one of the most recent reveals for Marvel Crisis Protocol. And today, it was a twofer. We got the panel to play for both Maximus the Mad and King Blackbolt for the Inhumans in the very eagerly awaited 4-pack that's going to be coming out sometime, I think in March, I want to say. I'm not 100% sure on that one. But very excited for this one. I know the Inhuman players are very excited. There's a couple I've already spoken to with this one. And I already know some of these things are going to cause a little bit of friction. So in this particular video, we are going to look at Maximus the Mad. So let's dive into it. So we got Maximus the Mad. He is bringing a new leadership to the Inhumans affiliation this time around. We have a, we'll see how he actually does things. It is a 4-threat leadership, so it does make things a little bit easier to build your team out a little bit, because a 5-threat leader is sometimes can be a little problematic when it comes to building your teams. You have a little bit more leeway to maybe go a bit wider. So what does Maximus the Mad bring to the table here? Well, his basic stat line is a 2-3-5, so 2 physical, 3 energy, 5 mystic defense. For a 4-threat, I mean, this is okay. The physical defense is on the low end of things, especially for a 4-threat, but he does have a really great mystic defense there. So, I mean, it is what it is. The trade-offs there. There's still sort of like a combined cumulative 10 defensive across the board here. But with physical being the most prominent defensive physical attacks being the most prominent attack in the game, there's a lot of stuff that can really eat into him. He does have 6 stamina on both sides, so 12 overall. Pretty good for a 4-threat right there. It's going to be a little bit to chew through. He's, as we discussed, 4-threat, size 2, medium movement. So all that looks pretty good. He is on a small size base. Very typical for all that sort of stuff. Aside from that physical defense, I don't really have much in the way of complaints with that defense line. But as far as attacks go, what does he bring? Well, he has his Mystic Brain Freeze attack, range 4, 5 dice, 0 power. It is a builder attack, and it's got a wild suppressive trigger. We're seeing this a little bit more, the suppressive triggers. I don't mind it so much. I think it's an interesting one. Being able to maybe mitigate some of the power that they would have generated off of an attack coming into them is really kind of nice. And it does happen after the attack is resolved. So, I mean, they would have gained the power for the attack, then they would have lost power and everything like that, just because of the way the steps work and everything. It's fine for 5 dice at range 4. The range is probably the big deal about this one. It is a nice range, and it does bring some mystic attacks to the Inhumans affiliation, which is always appreciated. Next up, we have another mystic attack, Neuro Annihilation, range 3, 9 dice for 5 power. The defending character cannot add additional dice to its defense roll or more modified defense dice, so there's no re-rolling dice, there's no adding dice from crits or anything like that. Now, keep in mind, it is the defending character cannot add, so if I'm understanding this correctly, other characters that can add defensive dice, Strange or Cable, for instance, you can still add those dice. You just can't add them for the target character. So, I mean, if he's attacking Strange or Cable, they can't add the dice. But if he's attacking somebody else, Strange and Cable might be able to add those dice to it, if I'm understanding things correctly. It does also have a wild stagger. So, I mean, we do like staggers there. On 9 dice, a wild stagger, I think, is somewhere in like the high 60% range in order to get it. So not too bad, lots of dice. It is very, very expensive at 5 power. I do feel it's a little on the expensive side of things for what it does, but because the defender is rolling straight dice, that's probably the trade-off right there. We've seen that ability be very powerful with other characters where they don't get rerolls, Agent Venom and all that sort of stuff. So this is potentially a good trade-off for that one. That 9 dice is just going to go a lot further for using it. The big deal he has here is his leadership. It's Call Me Maximus the Magnificent. Now, this one's a really interesting one, and this is where I can see a lot of contention happening within the community. The first time each turn an allied character would attack or defend, during the modified dice step, they must use the leadership. Reroll one of the attack or defense dice. So note that it doesn't say one of the, like a failed roll or anything like that. It's simply reroll one of the dice. If the rerolled result is a skull, after the attack is resolved, the opponent will place the allied character within range 1 of its current position, and this character gains 1 power. So this is an interesting one, because on one hand, it gives you a free reroll which is always really good. And this stacks on like the Inhuman rerolls and all this sort of stuff, or other reroll mechanics you might have. That part's good. Where it's bad is you are taking the chance. If you get that skull result, you can really displace you. It can move you off an objective. It can take you out of double tap range, or it can put you into maybe a bodyguard or taunt range, or even just put the character into a much worse position that they were in. Granted, the skull result is only one die facing on a d8, but that is a big punishment that could potentially happen if you happen to roll that skull. And because this is a must roll, you have to do it. So even if you roll into all successes, you could potentially be forced to re-roll it and maybe go into a fail, into a skull or something like that. So this is one of those things where it is very much high risk, high reward, I suppose. If you get that successful reroll off, it can really benefit you. If you get that skull, it can really hurt you. It's a 1 in 8 chance. I mean, you take your chances with it. And it's one of those things where it can potentially be bad or good. I think the big problem with this particular one is that it removes agency from the player, whereas most reroll mechanics, in fact, I think almost all reroll mechanics are basically like you may reroll when it comes to your own dice. This one has you just forcing to do it, taking that agency out of the player's hands, and that is very hard to plan for as a result, because one bad roll can completely throw off your entire game plan if you happen to roll that skull. So take it as you will. Do I like the leadership? My knee-jerk reaction right now, no, I don't. I don't know if I personally feel that reroll is worth it or not. I've already seen some people comment that the extra reroll is worth the risk that you're doing on there. I've seen some Inhuman players who really don't like it at the moment, so we're going to see how this one pans out as people start getting reps with it. Anyway, moving on. We have another active superpower. Did you forget why you're here? It's 2 power. Choose an ally character within 3 with an activated token. Advance the character short. The superpower can only be used once per turn. It's a bow mechanic. We love them. Displacing characters is always really good, especially if you can put somebody out of position, burrowing somebody in to maybe get a sweet beam or get all those extra attacks. So, and on 2 power, it's nice. I like it. Next up, we have Reactive. It's Madness, my favorite kind. Again, for 2 power. When an enemy character within 3 of this character makes an attack during the modified dice step, this character may use the superpower. The character rerolls 2 of the attacking character's dice. So this is basically it's the disruption field that Dynamo has. You're forcing some rerolls on some dice, which, as we saw with that character, very powerful effect, especially if you can get the power generation to do it. Always really like this effect, and, having it on another character, really kind of cool. I like it. I think it's very powerful. I think it's very good, and I think the Inhumans are going to love having that in-house for it. Next up, he is an Inhuman, which means he has the inherent reroll for attack and defense dice, and then he has immunity poison. So, yeah, there's some interesting stuff to unpack here. I think I guess we should also get into it. He also has a tactics card that he can use as well. Plots within plots. This one's kind of an interesting one. It's unaffiliated. It's reactive. During the power phase, Maximus the Mad can pay 4 power to play this card. Until the cleanup phase, once per turn, when an enemy character ends a movement within 2 of an allied character. After the effect is resolved, an allied character not within 2 of the enemy character may advance. This one's actually a really cool card. I think this one is a good reason to bring Maximus, maybe, because you can get a lot of out-of-sequence movement, especially if you're going up against a wide team or anything like that. It really lets you reposition and play around with the board state, which I really like. Is it worth 4 power? Maybe. But it is kind of cool because it also basically, can encourage people not to get within that range 2 band of your own characters. So if there's enemy characters that sort of operate within that range band, they have to think about whether or not they want to get in there and potentially open themselves up to some other attacks. So that is Maximus the Mad. Honestly, I look at his character, and sure, he fits in Inhumans. I don't know how I feel about him anywhere else, though. I don't really think he brings anything to the table that is all that great. As a 4 threat with a bow and dice reroll, I think there is an argument to bring him into teams that might want to fight up the center, whatever teams that may be, and I think that does give him some utility. That leadership, though, just gives me a lot of pause, and I'm not sure how that one's going to shake out, and I think there's going to be a lot of discussion that one over the next little bit as we kind of see how the Inhumans shake out with that one. Yeah, I wish I could give a little bit more of a definitive opinion on this one. He's a weird one to me, and I think like most leaders, he tends to exist kind of within his own bubble, and I don't think we're going to see him played much out of affiliation, at least not at first. I think down the road where we might see it simply because, again, that bow and that disruption field effect are two very powerful things. So I think the biggest problem he's going to have is, that physical 2 defense is going to make it very easy to take him down when it really comes to putting the nose to the grindstone, as it were. So there you go. There is Maximus the Mad. Share your thoughts below. What do you think of this character? What do you think about the leadership? If you like the leadership, I definitely want to hear about that one. I want to hear any positive cases for this leadership I can hear, because I'm personally a little risk averse on it. I don't personally like it, but other people may differ on that one. So sound off below. Make the case for this new leadership for the Inhumans. And as always, happy wargaming.